Thanks for checking out this video. For a full list of materials used in this project, head down to the description below and click on Show More. We're going to begin by making a bezel for the cabochon that's going to sit at the center of each component. So if I flip to the back here, you can see this is where we're going to start here. We're going to build this base for the bezel, and we'll move up to the top here and then add our little cabochon in, and then we'll build out from there. So we're going to start here by picking up 24 of our 11 seed beads in whatever color you want to be the main color for the project. For me, that's going to be this light gold champagne color. And then you want a secondary color, doesn't belong there. You want a secondary color, for me that's going to be the blue, and you can see I have it just in the center here. I've picked up one stop bead, and then I've added 23 beads after that, so that is my total of 24 beads that I need to start out. I'm going to use that stop bead as part of my project. And you want just enough tail thread here that you can kind of hold on to it and then come back to it later to tie off. You're not going to need to add a needle to it though, so it can be pretty short. Once you've got your 24 beads on your thread, we're going to go back up through our stop bead and a few beads, just so that we can give it a nice little pull and make sure that we don't have any loose thread, any slack in our circle here. We're going to add prongs to this circle now, and those prongs, we're actually going to add prongs a couple different times. These first prongs will actually help to create the foundation that our cabochon will sit on. So we're going to start here with the prongs, which really are going to kind of end up laying flat. So prong maybe isn't the right word, but that's what I'm going with. We're going to pick up 3 of our seed beads in that same color, and then just go back around the bead that our thread and needle are already coming out of, and that'll add those 3 beads to the bead there in our original little circle here, so it'll create a little diamond. I'm going to move forward in the circle of beads. I'm going to move forward 6 beads, and on that 6th bead, coming out of that 6th bead, I'm going to pick up 3 more and then back around that bead again, just like the first little prong. And I'm going to do this 2 more times so that I have a total of 4 prongs. Here's my 3rd prong. And I'm going to move forward again by 6 beads and pick up another 3 seed beads. And now if I move forward another 3 beads, or I'm sorry, another 6 beads, I should now be coming out of the first seed bead where I added the prong. So this is my initial step here, picking up my circle of beads. I need 24 beads, and then I'm adding those little prongs to each corner, essentially, every 6 beads. So now coming out of that bead at the bottom, I'm going to go up through the side bead in that prong, and then the center or top bead in that prong. I want all of these prongs to fold in towards the center. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the center here I have a contrasting color. So I'm going to pick up one of my contrasting colors here. This is this blue color that I like. And then I'm going to go to the next prong and pick up that bead, that center bead. And as I do that, it'll start pulling those prongs to the center. And pick up another blue bead, go through the next prong, and let that pull towards the center and push it down there. And pick up another blue and through the next prong, push it towards the center. And my final blue, I only need 4 of them here in the center. So I've got one more and going through the next, which is where I started. And so you can see it's pulled everything towards the center, but it looks a little messy. So now what I'm going to do is just take my needle and thread and pass through only the blue beads. And by passing through only the blue beads and skipping over any of those gold, I'm going to pull these towards the center, and it'll help create more of a diamond or square with those contrasting colors. And it also just helps with the structure of the piece so that it's got a nice base foundation. But really we care about what it looks like, and it just looks so much better when you pull all those in towards the center. It gives it a nice geometric look here. You can see my little triangle of gold and the 4 beads in the center there, which are a square or a diamond, depending on how you're looking at it. I'm going to go through them all here just one more time to make sure that I get a nice tight base for my cabochon. And then what we'll do next is add some prongs in the same location that we started with, same location as the prongs that we just pulled toward the center. And we'll build up the sides of our cabochon bezel. So once you get to this part, you've got the foundation done, and it might look a little wonky right now, but it'll look great once we start adding the other prongs and put our cabochon in. So go ahead and get to this point, and then we'll move on. Once we have our base for our cabochon, we want to build up the sides here and give this a nice bezel so that it's not going to go anywhere. You want to follow your thread path from the center turquoise beads, and you're just going to go through the little triangle here of seed beads through that prong. And you want to have your needle and thread on the outside coming out through the 11-0 seed bead at the base of that prong. We're now going to add 4 more prongs in the same location that we added our first set of prongs. Pick up 3 seed beads and go back around that bead that your thread is coming out of, and then move forward to the next prong location. So the prong location is going to be the same for both times that we're adding the prongs. We're using the same 11-0 seed bead from that circle of 24 to attach all of the prongs. And moving forward here, oops, my third prong. This so far is a really simple little design that you can do with seed beads, and in itself is a really cute and sophisticated look for an earring. So if you wanted to do this in some different color combinations, maybe pick up some crystals here and there, this all by itself, add an ear wire, and you've got a really cute lightweight ear wire or lightweight earring that is not very hard to make, quick and easy. You can make a whole bunch of them. You can also use this as a component. Again, kind of switch up the colors, make it fun, and then attach at the points to something else. Maybe use a little pearl and attach them. So lots that you can do with just this simple little simple little design with some basic seed beads. But of course, that's not what we're doing. So we're going to keep marching on here. Once we have our 4 new prongs, we're going to attach them as we did previously. So we're going to take our needle and thread and go to that center bead in the prong. And just like we did here in the center, we're going to connect all of these center beads in that prong. So all of the prongs are going to get connected with 5 seed beads. Now we're going to start introducing some of the other color seed bead here. And you can see on the top, this is the pattern that we're going to make. You can, of course, because it's just colors that we're choosing, this isn't how the beads are going to actually sit with each other and function. So you can really do whatever you want as far as a pattern. But I like the look of this pattern and bringing in some sort of striping, some sort of stripe or sort of like a polka dot kind of look. It kind of reminds me of that ancient Egyptian jewelry, which I like to look at anytime I get a chance to go to one of those really great museums with all the really old stuff. So that's where I kind of get that inspiration, is I love the stripe sort of look there. Okay, so moving on with the actual directions. I'm coming out of the prong and I'm going to pick up 5 seed beads, alternating my 2 colors here. So starting with one color and ending with the same color, I'm just alternating. In this one I did blue. This is like a purpley kind of topaz color. Blue, really it's like an amber color, kind of depends on how the light hits it. So I did blue, amber, blue, amber, blue. And I'm going to go through the next prong. And now for the next set of 5 beads, because I started with blue on this first one, I'm going to start with the amber and do an amber, blue, amber, blue, amber. And this will just continue the look there of that alternating colors, and you won't have 2 colors in the corner the same. So this is my 3rd connection. And once you get to this point, you can go ahead and stick that cabochon in. And if you can kind of hold this all together, that will help to keep all your beads upright and in the position that they should be, rather than potentially flopping around on you. This is my last side to the bezel. So you can see here, this is what I have now. It's still pretty loose because I haven't done anything to tighten it up. So now my next step here is to tighten up the walls of this bezel. I'm going to take my needle and thread through only the 5 beads that I added between the prongs. So I'm skipping at the corner, I'm skipping over the prong and going through the 5 beads of alternating color. Skipping over the prong and going through the 5 beads of alternating color. And I'm going to do this, you need to do this at least once to pull your sides in and to pull things up. But you can do this multiple times until you feel that it's secure and you've pulled all of your alternating color beads up to the top of the cabochon. So as I go around here again, I'm going to make sure that this row of 5 alternating color beads is actually getting pulled up, so that at the very corner here, they're sitting just a little bit above that gold bead on the corner. I want to skip over the gold bead and go through just my 5 beads. tightens up the corners. It pulls everything closer together in the center, so it makes a much more secure bezel for the cabochon. Once you're satisfied that you've got a nice tight bezel here and your cabochon is not going to fall out, we'll go ahead and move on to the next step, which is going to be adding some of this embellishment now on the outside and seeing this whole piece grow. We're going to start making this piece wider by adding the pearls on each corner. We're going to add some more prongs, so you'll have plenty of room making prongs by the time that this piece is done. We're going to pass through, oops, I don't like how tight that is there. I think it needs to be a little tighter in that corner, so I'm going to tighten that up. Okay. So now I'm going to pass down through my gold bead here on the corner on the prong. And again, we're just going to follow our thread path until we get back to, you guessed it, that same 11-0 where we added our other two prongs. So this is the third and final prong we're going to add to the same seed bead. And you've got plenty of practice by now with that. We're picking up 3 of our seed beads and going around here to the next and picking up 3 seed beads and going to the next. One of the things that I really like about this piece is that you can stop it at really almost any point, and it can be a finished piece. So just like I was saying, you could stop it earlier when we just had some seed beads. You could stop it at this point too, and just make it a really cute little cabochon bezel. And you can add these prongs, which just add a nice little embellishment flair to the corners. So this really is a piece that as you go, you can kind of finish it and use it as is for any number of pieces of any number of kinds of jewelry. So here, again, cute little ring. You could use it just as is, put a little earring there, and you've got a nice little pair of earrings. So there you go. Got to find things to talk about while I add prongs. So there we go. Again, this looks pretty familiar to you. This is what it looked like before we started adding the sides of the bezel. We have 4 more prongs, so a total of 12 prongs, 3 on each corner. We're going to take our needle and thread, and we're going to go to that center bead in the prong, that bead that gets the most attention, this one that sticks out the farthest, the top of our little triangle. And now we're going to start introducing these pearls. So I'm going to pick up one of my pearls, and after the pearl, I'm going to pick up one of my seed beads, and I'm using that gold color still. I'm going to go back down through the pearl, leaving that seed bead here on the other side, and go through that seed bead in the prong, and back up through the pearl, through the seed bead at the top of the pearl here. And now we're going to start adding a border around our pearl. So you can see here that my border is alternating beads of my amber and my gold. So you can do the same, or you can do alternating to match what we have going on in the center here, or solid. Of course, it's really up to you. The colors don't really matter to the design other than aesthetics. It's not going to change anything about the way it functions. I'm going to continue here with the colors that I've chosen here because I want to add on to this bracelet. So I'm going to pick up 7 beads, and I'm going to pick them up in this alternating colorway of my amber and my gold. So I should be starting with an amber and finishing with an amber. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to go through my gold bead sitting directly at the base of my pearl. So that's the one side. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here, picking up that alternating pattern. And going through the gold bead at the very top of the pearl. And now that I've got this little border on here, I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I'm going to go through all these beads one more time. The purpose of going through the beads again is just to make sure that we have everything tight and I don't have any places where there's too much thread showing. And it gives me a better grip on the beads here. You can you'll feel it tightening up as you go. So around one more time here until I get back down to the base of my pearl, towards the center of my design, towards my cabochon. And now I'm going to take my needle and thread and go through the bead on the side of the prong. And I'm going to go through all of the beads here. If I flip it over, it's a little easier to see. I'm going to go through all the beads along the edge of my bezel here until I come out under the next prong. And you can either go through that bead if you want, the bead at the base of the prong, or you can just go up through the side. It's not really going to matter. It actually will help give it a little bit more stability if you don't go through that bead there, and you just go from the beads along the edge directly to the bead on the side of the prong. It'll kind of help stabilize things. And go through that center bead on the prong. And from here, you're just going to follow the same steps that we did to add this pearl. So you're going to do that here, here, and here on each of the 4 corners. So go ahead and get to that point, and then we will move on with the rest. After adding your pearls to each corner of your piece, we're going to start adding the 3mm beads in between our pearls here to fill out this square frame. I'm starting with a new threaded needle. If you have plenty of thread, you're just going to take your threaded needle and follow your thread path until you come out of the second gold bead here from the base of the pearl. So the base of the pearl here, we have the prong, which is that gold bead, and then the second gold bead up. It's 1 to your third bead from the prong. It's actually your second bead from the prong. If you count the prong, it's your third bead. And I'm going to, because I'm picking up a new thread needle, I'm going to just go ahead and make this bead my stop bead. So I'm taking my thread around that bead one more time, just to anchor my thread there so I can continue working. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect one pearl to another pearl with two of my faceted rounds. So I'm going to pick up a faceted round and just one seed bead for the center, and then another faceted round. I'm going to go to the same bead on the other pearl here, opposite, and take my needle and thread and go through that seed bead. So if you follow the same pattern that I did, you're going from one gold seed bead to another gold seed bead. Through that bead, and then we're going to go back through our faceted rounds and our seed bead. And through our seed bead on the other side here, same gold one. And back through the beads in the center here, our faceted rounds and seed bead. And then we're going to go up through the next seed bead above the gold. That's going around our pearl, and that will be one of our topaz beads. So of course, if you have different colors, yours is going to be different, but you want to go up through the next 11-0. The beads we're going to pick up to connect here are going to be one of our faceted rounds, and then we're going to pick up two seed beads. And you'll see there's a third one here. We're actually going to add that one afterwards. And then one more faceted round. And we're going to repeat the same steps that we did for this connection. We're going to go through the same bead on this pearl opposite. Back through all the center beads. So our faceted round are two seed beads, and then our faceted round. Go through the topaz bead on the other side here. Go through our faceted round and one of our seed beads. And now at the center here, coming out of one of our seed beads, we're going to pick up one more of these gold beads and go down through the second seed bead and the faceted round. And as you do that, you want to just position it so that that center seed bead is sitting nicely between the two seed beads. So the one that you added is sitting between the two seed beads, kind of wedged in there. And go through that topaz bead again. And I'm going to continue all the way around here, going through all the seed beads around my pearl. Until I get to the gold bead where I want to start my connections again. So I'm going to go through this gold bead here. And now I'm going to pick up a faceted round, a gold, and a faceted round. Go through the gold on the opposite side. And back through my beads in the center. And go through the gold bead again. Through my faceted round, my seed bead, and my faceted round again. And now back up through the topaz, where I'm now going to do the next connection here with my faceted round, my two seed beads and faceted round. Go to the topaz bead opposite, and we're going to make that connection, go through there and back through these 4 beads in the center. Through that topaz bead. And now on my way back, I'm going to go through the first 2 beads here, so my faceted round and my first 11-0. Pick up one of my 11-0s and go down through the seed bead and faceted round, and just give that a little push in the right direction here. So it sits wedged, so my new seed bead sits wedged between the 2 below it. And I'm going to go through this topaz bead. And now I don't want to go this direction because I'm going to get to a space I've already added a connection to. So I'll just turn my thread around here and go back the way I came, working towards this empty space where I need to add another connection. So through my topaz bead on this side, and then I'll go through my beads here until I get to my gold bead where I need to make my first connection. I'll add my second, and then of course I'll come back around here and add my 2 connections here. So once you've got all of those pieces, all of those connections done, we will build this up a little bit more. We're getting close to the end here. Our component's almost done. So go ahead and finish that, and then we will move on. So give yourself a pat on the back if you've made it this far. Something to be quite proud of. We're going to do one final step here to finish this up. It's really kind of done the way that it is, but I want it to be a little bit more substantial and to have a little bit more stiffness to it. I don't want it to be so floppy. And so the last piece that we do by adding this gold border here will give it a little bit more heft and substantialness to kind of be a little bit better component when we add them all together. So you've got now all of your 3mm beads added in between the pearls. You want to take your needle and thread, and you want your needle and thread coming out at this center bead. It's again that same bead in the prong where we attached our pearl. So we want to come out of this center bead here at the base of our pearl. And that should be a gold bead or whatever color you're using for gold. I'm going to pick up 2 more of those gold beads, and then I'm going to go through the prong directly above it. I'm going to pick up 2 more beads and go back through the seed bead below. So you should now have 2 pairs of seed beads sitting right next to each other. Go up through the first pair of seed beads that you added, and we're going to go through the gold bead in that prong, and we're going to go through all of those alternating color seed beads, through the gold bead in the prong, and we're going to add the same 4 seed beads here, just starting at the top rather than the bottom by the pearl. Picking up 2 seed beads and going through this gold bead at the base of the pearl, 2 more seed beads, and then going through the prong, through all those alternating color seed beads, and through the prong, pick up 2 seed beads and through the gold bead at the base of the pearl. Two more seed beads and through the prong. And now one more time here through those alternating colors, through the prong, picking up 2 and going through that bead at the base of the pearl. 2 more seed beads and through the prong. So now you should have sets of 4 seed beads added between the pearl and the prong here on each corner. And so you can see that's what we have in here. Now we're going to add one last little step here to finish this and make sure that it has the structure that we want. I'm going to take my thread needle, go through these alternating seed beads. I'm going to go down through the 2 seed beads that I just added on the same side where my thread is. And now I'm going to go up through the 2 seed beads next to it. I'm not going through that bead at the base of the pearl. I'm skipping that entirely. I'm just going down one set of beads and up the other set. And here I'm going to pick up 5 of my gold color. And I'm going to go down through one set of those beads and up through the other set. Another 5 beads here onto the next corner here and going down through 2 and up through the next 2. Another 5 beads. And down through 2. Oops. And make sure that you're picking up 5. It looks like I picked up 6. And it should be pretty noticeable. So if you pick up the wrong number of beads, make sure you take care of that right away, because otherwise you're going to end up very sad. Sometimes Allie will break beads off. You can do that if you're desperate, but you always, of course, risk breaking the thread as well. So take care of that as soon as you see it. And up the other side here, picking up another 5. And down through the 2 here where I started. So this looks very close to what I have here, but never leave well enough alone. I'm going to go up through the next set of beads here, so up through the next 2. And now what I'm going to do is very similar to what we did with the beads that we have, these alternating beads. I'm going through just the beads on the side here. So that should be 5 beads. If I can see them, if I can get my needle in there, just going through those 5 beads and going through the gold on the corner, which is that part of my bezel or part of my prong, and going through the next 5 beads. And going through that bead on the corner, that's part of the prong. And what this is doing is pulling those beads into place so that they're tight up against each other, much tighter being connected to that prong than they would be if we didn't connect them. Without connecting them to the prong, they can kind of fall to the side. Connecting them to the prong here lifts them up a little bit and gives them a little bit more structure. So once you've gone through and you've added all of these beads and you've got them all nice and tightly pulled together at the center here, we're going to call this a component, and we're going to call this component done. Go ahead and tie off your thread and needle. Go ahead and tie it off someplace, probably in the center underneath, because along the edges here is where we're actually going to make the connection. So we don't want to have any knots or loose thread in here if we can help it, because it's going to make the connection a little bit harder to make if we have to contend with loose pieces of thread and knots. So go ahead and tie off your thread and needle somewhere underneath here, and then we'll go ahead and make those connections. Okay, now we are ready to connect our components. Of course, before you get to this point, you're going to have to make at least another 3 or 4 components, depending on how long of a bracelet you need. Each one of these is roughly an inch. So if you need it to be 6 or 7 inches, you can consider that you need about that many components minus 1, because your clasp will also take up some room. And I think I'm going to add this clasp and taper it down towards the end. So we'll see just exactly how much room my clasp takes up once this video is done. So I'm starting with a new thread, not a new needle. Fortunately, my needle did survive through this whole project, so just a new thread here. And I'm going to need 2 pearls, and these pearls are going to get inserted here between my 2 components. Also need some of my seed beads. Again, I'm using that gold color, that's my main color. And I'm also going to, at the end, use a little bit of this accent color. So when we get there, I'll bring out that accent color. Now, I like to start at the center here, and I'm going to anchor my thread, my new thread, to that center bead. That is the bead that we added. That is the 3rd bead we added that's wedged between the 2 here in the center. I'm going to pick up one of my seed beads, and I'm going to pick up the pearl. So the pearl, 1 seed bead, and then the pearl. I'm then going to pick up 1 seed bead, and I'm going to then anchor my thread to this gold seed bead that sits 1, 2, 3 beads away from where I attached this second set of faceted rounds. So for me, it is a gold bead. So I'm going to take my needle and thread and just go through that bead. And then I'm going to go back through the seed bead, my pearl, the seed bead, and the center bead here where I started. And this is the bead where I first attached my thread. I'm now going to pick up another seed bead and another pearl and another seed bead. And I'm going to attach this pearl to the same seed bead on this side. And if we take a look here, it is the second gold seed bead after my connection point for my faceted round. And go back through the seed bead and the pearl. I'm also going to go through the seed bead and that center bead again, and then through my seed bead right before the pearl. And so now I've successfully added these 2 pearls to one of the components. I'm now ready to bring in the other component here and add the second component onto the same seed or onto the same pearls. I'm coming out the top of the pearl here. So I'm going to pick up one of my seed beads. And again, I want to attach to the second gold seed bead after my faceted rounds. And I need to go down through the seed bead and the pearl. It's a little flimsy right now, so that's okay. Just make sure that you don't get any of your thread tangled and that you're giving it a nice pull in between each of your stitches here so that you don't have any slack. And now I'm going to pick up one of my seed beads, and I'm going to go through that center seed bead, same bead that I used on the other component. We're connecting in the same way using the same beads. And another 11-0 seed bead, and down through the next pearl. The next pearl that we're connecting to in the center here. And give that a pull. Pick up one of our seed beads. And we're going to now make the connection here to that second gold bead after the fire polished. Back through the seed bead and back through the pearl. So you can see at this point, the connection is there, the connection exists, but you can reinforce it at this point if you want and trace through some of your thread paths to reinforce it, or if you feel like you didn't get it very tight. But I'm also going to add my little accent of my turquoise because that makes a really nice look in there and gives it a little extra something. So once I've completed adding the pearls and I've got my thread coming out of the pearl, I'm going to go through the next 2 seed beads. So I'm going through the seed bead directly after the pearl, and then that center bead that was wedged between the 2 other beads. I'm going to pick up one of my accent beads and go through the same seed bead directly opposite on the other side here. And that will actually orient your seed bead going the opposite direction. So it'll fill that little gap nicely. And back through my blue contrasting bead. And back through that center bead that was wedged in there. And then if you want to reinforce this, of course you can. Anybody who watches my videos knows that I love to reinforce. A superhero name would be the Reinforcer. I don't know what that superhero would do, but nothing would ever break. Nothing would ever break. I'm going back through that center bead, that wedged bead. And now that center is complete. The other place where I added embellishment was at the very top and bottom of the pearls. So all we have to do here is follow our thread path through the seed bead and through the pearl, through the seed bead, and around that seed bead again. That's going around our pearl. So we're just following the same thread path through the seed bead directly next to our pearl, and then I'm picking up one of those accent colors and crossing to the other side here to the gold bead directly across, passing through that gold bead and back through the next gold bead. And I'm going to go through the center bead again because I like having the thread going through it from both directions, and that just pulls it a little bit better into place. So I'm going to loop around this gold bead again through the next seed bead, and finally through my pearl. I have to do the same thing on the other side here. So all I'm going to do is, again, follow my thread path through all of these beads. So I'm going to follow my thread path through the next few gold beads. If I can get my needle through. It'll be a little tricky at this point because you've got a lot going on here. And it's making me feel like I might need some glasses. Actually, I have very good eyesight up close. Just the lighting in my face. And so I'm going to go through the next 11 here till I come out the other side of my pearl. And I'm going to repeat the same steps on the other that I did on the other side, following my thread path until I have my needle and thread coming out in that gap between the beads that sits directly on top of my pearl. Picking up that contrasting color and inserting that there between the gold beads and reinforcing this connection back through the gold bead, back through the next gold bead, and go through that turquoise one again. It helps to kind of correct the way that it's sitting, because if you go through just once, it may want to sit to the side. So if you go through twice, that just helps to correct that. So now once I've got back to my pearl, I'm now at the point where I can cut my thread off. The connection is done. Everything is where it needs to be. And the only thing at this point that you would need to do is, if you see any parts that are loose, anything where you see extra thread, you could go through and tighten that up if you need to. At this point, I'm going to tie off my thread, and then I'm going to work on the ends here to taper it down so I can put on a clasp. We're going to work on adding our clasp by first adding part of the connection that we would make to connect the components. So here I've added to my very last component just the one side of the connection. So I've got the pearls here added, but I don't have this these two pearls, of course, connected to another component because we're going to connect to the clasp. So go ahead and on the end here on your very last component, just start adding your pearls and then stop at the point where you would start adding your pearls to the next component. You're going to get your needle and thread to the position where it's coming out next to or between the pearl and your seed beads in the center here. And go through the first seed bead, the first gold seed bead. We're going to pick up a couple of seed beads and we're going to go through one of the loops in our clasp, making sure that we have it oriented the right direction. We want it facing up. And then you're going to take your needle and thread and go back through the 2 seed beads and through that seed bead where we started. We're going to then move 2 seed beads ahead to the seed bead that is sitting at the base of the pearl. Pick up 2 more seed beads. And we're going to go through the clasp again with these 2 seed beads. And then back through the 2 seed beads. And through the seed bead at the base of the pearl. Go back through those 2 seed beads again and around your clasp through the 2 seed beads, and we're going to go through all 3 of seed beads now between the pearls. And now we'll reinforce this other side. So I'm going to go through my 2 seed beads again that are connecting to my clasp, through my clasp, through the 2 seed beads again. And now at this point you can reinforce it more if you want, if you feel that you need more of a connection. You can also, of course, use a wire guard. I prefer to do it this way, and I feel like it stays flatter this way. Now here is a very critical part of our piece. So I'm going to go through some of these seed beads between the pearls and just reinforce this connection point here, especially this pearl at the very center here. This is the pearl that was wedged between, or I'm sorry, this is the seed bead that was wedged in between the other 2 seed beads when we were adding our faceted rounds. So I want to make sure that that is nice and secure. And I can connect that. Again, I can go through these seed beads and fire polished rounds again, just to give that seed bead, since our clasp is going to be tugging on that seed bead, I can reinforce this connection here so that it doesn't have too much wear and tear on it, or that it it stands up to that wear and tear. So just reinforcing that connection. And once you're done with that, you're just going to repeat the same steps on the other side, and you will have a completed bracelet. So here's the end here. We just added the connection here with the 2 pearls, and then connected from the center out to our clasp. Go ahead and do the same on the other side, and then you will have a completed bracelet. If you enjoyed this video, please comment below and let us know your thoughts. You can also subscribe to our channel to be notified as soon as we have more beading tutorials out that you will enjoy probably just as much as you enjoyed this one.